The White Buns are a new faction released as a free LC faction for Total War Attila, which is nice. Always nice to have something new to test, a new faction to play with. They are much like the normal nuns, but these buns are white instead of, I assume, the other color. I'm not going to say that the other Huns are. So obviously these Huns are better than the old ones, you know, because they are... I'm not going to take that one any further. I'm just joking, of course. The white buns are better than the black nuns because the black nuns are an older faction. The power creep has to be in for a faction to be interesting, apparently. So, Kindred of the Sun, being the new general's option, he has the... I think he has the... You know what? I'm not sure whether he has the Sparta or the Kanda. Let me just check that here. I should have really have checked that in advance. Yeah, I'm going to have to check that in the database and then report back. Because I haven't checked whether he has a Kanda or Sparta. And of course that's important because if he has a Kanda, then he has a 10 bonus versus... 10 bonus versus. Now, versus infantry. So, but since both the Uars and the Kingilas Kandas and the Uar warriors have Kandas, I'm going to assume that this guy also has a Kanda. If not, he should really just nick a few weapons off his men here. But enough about that. Step Levy, nothing new about them. Step Spearmen, nothing new. Here it becomes interesting with the Cyanide Spears and the Yanda Spearmasters. Now, the missile block chance on the Cyanide Spears, 60. Very nice missile block chance. They have a precursor, and that precursor does 30 damage versus large. Significant. They also have expert charge defense, but they don't really have the stats to back that up. Low health, low armor. They do have an extremely high melee attack though, a decent charge bonus, but this is the ability that really makes this unit special. The Cavalry Counter Tactics. Increases attack by 400% against cavalry and 900% against elephants. So what you're going to be looking at here when these guys are fighting cavalry is a 150 bonus versus cavalry. 150 bonus versus cavalry, and that kills cavalry units in seconds. Now the Yanda Spearmasters, I don't quite see where the Yanda Spearmasters fit here. They are affordable, they are not that expensive. They have a 30 bonus versus large, which is very nice. They have a 70% missile block, which is very nice. They will lose hardcore to infantry. They have rapid advance, so they can get into cavalry engagements a bit quicker. They're not that expensive, but they will not kill cavalry as quickly as the Cyanide Spears will. Step tribespeople, nothing new to say about them. Why anyone would ever bring Sogdian warriors at 500 when you have Uar warriors is beyond me. So you get sort of two different Uar warriors, the Kingilas Kandas being a sort of a Uar warrior. They have these Kingilas Kandas have a lot of armor, a lot of melee defense, a much bigger missile block, and although their melee attack is only 32, it's actually 42 because of the bonus versus infantry, but they have a reasonably small charge bonus. So if this unit had shield wall, it would be completely ridiculous against infantry. But they do have headhunt, making them unbreakable. The standard Uar warriors do not have that. So this is a unit that has the ability to stay in the fight for an extended period of time. Ideally charging in after cavalry has charged in, or this is not the first unit you send in because it has a low charge bonus. But as a supporting unit, it can do extremely well, both versus cavalry and against infantry. Chosen Uars, these guys will never break, but they do come at a hefty price. Steppe Warriors, standard axe infantry, nothing much to say about them. Guardians of the Hindu Kush, of course the White Huns have everything from Kandas, Dane axes, 30 bonus versus large. But the thing with the Guardians of the Hindu Kush is that they have been hitting the Kush they're guarding a bit too hard. Their charge bonus is only 15, and they have a weird set of stats. A very high melee defense, and a very low charge bonus. It's almost like these two values should be swapped around. And with the number of mistakes that are in the recent patch, I wouldn't be surprised if they were supposed to have a 57 charge bonus and a 15 melee defense. That would certainly make more sense. A bit of armor, a bit of health, and unbreakable precursors that do 30 damage to enemy cavalry. So these guys could potentially be nice for supporting infantry against cavalry, but as it is now, too expensive, and they just don't have the stats to do the damage as quickly as they need to. Are archers, nothing much to say about them. Step-mounted tribespeople, Hunnic-mounted warband, nothing much to say about these units. This is where it gets interesting with the Heptalite chargers. They basically don't have any armor. They have a very low melee attack, but they do have a 30 bonus versus cavalry. They do have precursors with 3 ammunition. This is 3 ammunition and cavalry counter tactics. So when these guys charge into melee, they're first going to be throwing precursors that do 30 bonus damage versus cavalry. And when they activate cavalry counter tactics, things just become insane. They can defeat some shock cavalry units on the charge, provided that the shock cavalry isn't able to one-shot them too easily, and they will just kill any melee cavalry unit in seconds. Noble Alani cavalry killed the shit out of them. Aldauser killed the shit out of them. This unit is beyond cost effective in melee on melee cavalry engagements. Just absolutely insane, and it makes no sense whatsoever. Like, press the magic button and then the unit kills cav. I absolutely hate that type of mechanic. Let's see, yeah, a few more melee units that are of questionable use. Nothing new here in the shock cavalry department. In the bow cavalry department, you have steppe horse archers. They have spears and stuff, but the unit that really steals the show is the Spet Scion archers. Spet Scion archers wield a spear in close combat. Rapid advance, precision shot, partridge shot, everything you need from a good skirmish unit. But they do have a 70% missile block chance and 75 armor, which is absolutely ridiculous for a skirmish cav unit. These guys can take fire from the front all day. They will be blocking 70% of it anyway, so used with care, the Spet Scions can be great for damaging enemy cavalry and then charging into light enemy infantry or to chase down skirmishers, or even to join cav fights, because their melee attack is exceptionally high. Their melee defense is decent, but with using a spear in close combat, they won't, and having 75 armor and 224 health, they will do well in cavalry engagements when they're supporting. Then we have the Indian elephants, and yeah, not much to say about the elephants. The elephants still suck. They are still a horrible, horrible unit that you should never even consider bringing. They are just beyond bad. So from what I can see, these are the main new units for the White Huns, and the White Huns do have very, like in infantry, they have melee, they have infantry killing specialists. In spears, they have cavalry killing specialists. In melee cavalry, they have melee cavalry killing specialists. In skirmish, they have skirmish cav killing specialists. The thing that the White Huns lack, in my opinion, is, it might sound weird because they have the most cost-effective melee cavalry in the game, but the White Huns can get overwhelmed, and one of the reasons being their selection of shock cav isn't the greatest. Now, it's certainly not bad. Like, you can make some pretty, let's assume that there's a max 5 melee cav limit here. So I have the Kindred of the Sun, the Noble Steppe Cataphracts. Then I'm going to bring in, let's see, 2 Spet Scion archers. I'm going to have some Uar warriors. I'm going to have some Kingilas Kandas. Let's see, 3 Kingilas Kandas and 2 Cyanide Spears, just as an example. Now, this is a powerful army, for sure. You can even take out Noble Step Cataphracts and bring in some let's see here. Yeah, bring in some Heptalite Chargers. That would save you some funds. The thing is though, the Huns suffer from some of the same vulnerabilities as the normal Huns. Not as pronounced for sure, but they do lack cheap, cost-effective foot skirmishers, and they are prone to factions that can kill their cavalry, their shock cavalry, and their infantry very, very quickly. So let's see here, a faction like any faction that has a good, for example, the Alans. I think the Alans are quite good against the White Huns, because the Alans are just not going to play the skirmish game with the White Huns. The Alans are going to bring shock cav, that's going to do reasonably well against units like Heptalite Chargers and Noble Step Cataphracts. But then what really kills the White Huns is that enemy shock infantry, unless you're able to deal with those with your own cavalry or skirmishers, enemy shock infantry is going to kill UR warriors and Kingilas Kondas exceptionally fast. And if you go with your own shock infantry, the Guardians of the Hindu Kush, they're just going to lose in terms of cost efficiency against other enemy shock infantry. So from the battles I've played, the White Huns are quite the powerful faction, but they can be countered with relative ease. Not super easily, mind you, but with a faction that puts the pressure on them and never lets them rest, like the Alans, it can be exceptionally hard for the Huns to stand up to that. So the Alans, I think they can do a good job. A number of other factions can do a decent job here against the White Huns, but the White Huns are no pushover. You need to counter each unit that specifically. And the more cavalry you can bring, the better it becomes, in my opinion, for the White Huns here. Because if you can bring a lot of cavalry, then you can bring in shock cavalry, you can bring in Heptalite Chargers, and you can bank on the cost effectiveness of your UR warriors, your Kingilas Kondas, bring in some cheap steppe tribes people, perhaps, or even bring in some of the Spet Scions. Let's see here, Spet Scion. There we are. Bring in some Spet Scions. So, cavalry, a strong suit, but each cavalry unit needs to be managed with care, because the shock cavalry, not that powerful. The Spet Scion archers need a lot of micromanagement, of course, and so do the Heptalite Chargers. They need a lot of micromanagement. But if managed well, the White Huns can do a lot of damage, and they are a reasonably powerful faction. And I'm not a fan of the cavalry counter tactics, the way they are, the way you can just press the button and then get a magical increase in damage. I don't think that's good for gameplay. Strength and honor.